kind of just a general overview of things that you're going to need to apply to grad school. Each school that you apply to is going to have its own application. There's no like common app for graduate schools like there is for undergraduate schools, at least in the United States. So you're going to have to enter your information in as many times as you're trying to apply to schools. There also are application fees. Those can really add up. Applying to school can be expensive. However, like we'll see that a lot of places offer fee waivers. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Next, you're going to need what they call a personal statement. It's an essay about who you are and what you've done and why you want to come to grad school. And this is really a chance to kind of show off, show yourself off to the admissions committee of the school. Next, you might need standardized test scores. We're going to talk much more about that later. So I've got 2 asterisks next to it. You're also going to need minimum 3 letters of recommendation. All places require 3. Some will allow you a 4th, but all require 3. Then we're going to talk about transcripts towards the end, and we'll wrap it out with some other as well. But now I want to give just kind of a general timeline of things to be thinking about when you're beginning to apply to school. And I know this is a lot of text on the page, but I want to make sure I got it all on there and didn't forget any. The most important thing is that you should really start early. And I really mean early, because most schools have deadlines either December 1st or December 15th. And by the way, I'm talking specifically for physics and astro programs, by the way, but a lot of this applies to other STEM graduate programs as well. So at least in physics and astro, a lot of schools have December 1 or December 15 deadlines. And so that means you might even want to start this process now. Now being the date of this recording is July 18th. So you should really be starting to consider a lot of these things even as early as now, 6 months ahead, because it'll really help you in the long run if you do. One thing that you'll want to do fairly immediately is get your transcripts in order. You can get that from your school. They can be unofficial, as we'll talk about later, but that's something you want to do early because you don't want to be waiting on your school at the last minute to try to send you a transcript so that you can upload it to some website. And you don't want to be dependent on anyone else. You want to have all those in hand. When you get some free time, you want to be filling out these applications, just plugging in all your personal information because you're going to have to do it. If you apply to 10 schools, you're going to have to do it 10 times. And this can be really tedious and annoying. So I recommend watching TV or something and just doing it while you have that in the background. But do that early because, again, you don't want to be on that last night on, December 14th. And you got to upload all your personal information and it's a huge hassle and, you're racing against the clock. You don't want to do that. Next, if you do have to take tests, the standardized tests, you want to take them as soon as you can, or at least you want to start studying as soon as you can so that you can take them with enough time to give yourself perhaps a second try if you do want that. But again, we're going to talk more about tests later. I have a lot of thoughts on tests. Next, you're going to want to start thinking about your personal statement, even as early as now in July. Certainly into September and October, you want to be writing that personal statement so you have time to give it to others to get feedback. And lastly, and this one's really maybe the most time dependent, is you want to ask for these letters of recommendation really early. I've given a kind of rule of thumb here of 10 weeks before the deadline, and that would roughly be October 1st. But earlier is better. You're more likely to get people to agree to write letters if you ask early, and you're more likely to get better letters if you ask early, and they will be much happier with you if you ask them early. So just generally, asking 4 months in advance is not unheard of. Don't feel like you're going too early. They would probably even thank you. But anyway, we'll talk more about that later. Just again, some general advice, starting early is important, but also organization is going to be key. You're going to have a lot of balls juggling in the air. And you don't want to lose track of any of them. It's going to be very easy to lose track of them. And so, for example, when I applied, I was keeping spreadsheets of things that I had done and the things that I had yet to do. Just making checklists each day. I had a couple items I wanted to get done. So organization is really going to be key through all this, especially if you're applying to a lot of schools, of which today people do tend to apply to quite a few. We'll talk more about that towards the end, though. And again, I just want to reiterate that that first time around, if you're not accepted, that's not a, the end of the line for you. I again know many people who've applied multiple times and eventually it works out for them. And so do not get discouraged if it doesn't quite happen the first time. So now more into those individual items that you're going to need. The actual application, again, there is no common app, so you're going to have to do each one individually. There is an application fee for every place you go. And they have a wide range of costs. I was looking at a couple. I've seen as low as 60. I've seen as high as 150. And actually, sometimes it's even higher for international students. And I say international in the sense of outside of the United States, or students coming from outside of the United States, I should say. So one thing that's really important is that all schools also offer fee waivers. Not everyone knows this. Fee waiver literally just means they waive the fee. There is no cost to you. The department or the school will decide that you don't have to pay the fee. There are a lot of different rules about who can get a fee waiver and why you might be eligible for a fee waiver. All schools will post that information on their website. Generally, these are policies that are set by the school as opposed to the department that you're applying to. And so the rules might seem very rigid, but I highly encourage you to contact the department that you're interested in joining. If it's the physics department or the chemistry department, whatever it might be, or the astro department in our case, try contacting them to ask about fee waivers and explaining your position and why you might need or want help on these fee waivers. A lot of times the departments have a bit more wiggle room than the actual schools themselves. So I highly recommend that you contact these departments if cost is prohibitive to you, because I know a lot of departments don't want cost to be the prohibiting factor to applying to their department. And so they will help you if they can. But again, I would highly recommend actually contacting them. Next is this essay. Some schools have multiple essays, but every school has at least one. They call it the personal statement. I've thrown up a link here to some advice that I saw online. I thought this was a really good website with advice on how to actually write your personal statement, because I myself don't remember necessarily everything that goes into it, but and certainly kind of changed over the last few years, particularly with COVID, things that you might want to include. So I recommend you kind of browse this website, but there's many sites like this that give advice on how to write your personal statement. But generally, the personal statement is just it's supposed to be your way of introducing yourself to the admission committee, telling them who you are and what you've done in the past, what you want to do in the future, why you want to go to grad school in the first place, and what you hope to get out of it. Nothing that you say in this essay is ever binding. I mean, you could say you want to study XYZ because then you want to go work for some company XYZ, whatever. And then later you decide, oh, actually, I want to stay in academia and teach. No one will ever hold you to anything you say in this essay. Something that I think is important is, and this is part of starting early, is that you want to have a full draft of this personal statement early enough that you can then give it to others so that they can read and give you feedback. People that might give you feedback are the first three people I would ask are my three letter writers. Hey, will you also give this a quick read and give me some feedback on it? You could ask parents, you could ask friends, you could ask grad students who are already in school. You could ask professors that you've worked with in the past. Feel free to reach out to these people, because the worst thing they can say is, no, I don't have the time to read it. But if they do read it, they can probably give you some really good advice. That said, if you do give it to a lot of people, you're going to get a lot of advice. And some of it's going to be great advice. A lot of it's going to be good advice. Some of it's going to be bad advice. A lot of it is going to be contradictory advice. Don't feel like you have to take all of it. It's still your essay. It's your personal statement. So don't let too many cooks in the kitchen, rip apart your statement. It's still yours. In the bottom here, I've included just kind of they're calling it a classic application prompt. I took this right off that website that I've linked above. This is generally what these prompts look like, these personal statement prompts. They say, why are you interested in school? Why do you want our department? And then talk about your areas of interest and future career plans. This is what a general prompt looks like. Next, we get into the topic of standardized tests. Now, historically, there are these two tests, the general GRE and the physics GRE. The general GRE is 3 sections or 3 topics. It's like language comprehension, I think it is. It's like reading paragraphs and then answering questions about the content of those paragraphs. And a lot of things on like word choice and definitions. Then there is a math section, which is usually algebra and geometry, some statistics, things like that. And then there's also an essay section. That's the general GRE. Then there's the physics GRE, which is I believe it's 100 questions, multiple choice questions. You fill in the bubble. And they're entirely physics topics. They're a whole range of physics topics. They're really the questions are supposed to span the entirety of like an undergraduate education in physics. My personal opinion, both of these tests are not good tests. They have a lot of biases to them. They are gatekeepers in many ways. They're very expensive. They cost hundreds of dollars just to take. They cost even more if you want to buy the books and for potential tutoring to go with those books. This is a very expensive endeavor. And so it's not very open to everyone, quite frankly. And a lot of people in the field, I said in the field of astronomy and physics, recognize this and are starting to take the steps to no longer require or even not accept these test scores. And so I urge you to when you do have a list of schools that you are interested in applying to, make sure you check out if these test scores are not required or not accepted. There is a difference. Not required meaning you can submit them if you want. Not accepted means do not even submit them. We don't want them. Personally, I hope in the next year, 2 years, I hope in the very near future, all schools move to a not accepted policy. I don't know if that's imminent, but I certainly hope it's moving that way. I know, for example, my school, University of California, Irvine, we have moved to a not accepted phase. So do not even send us both tests, by the way. Don't send us the general, don't send us the physics. They don't want to see it. Some schools are not accepting the general, but are still requiring the physics. So these, you might have one or the other accepted or not. These are things that you should really check out when you're applying or choosing schools to apply to. In particular, because the general GRE, you can take, I think, almost any day of the year. You just kind of sign up and there are testing locations all around the country or even world. You can just go take these tests. I think you can even take it online now. The physics GRE is only offered twice a year. One in like September, I think, and one in October or November. So if you don't sign up for those 2 exams out of the year, you miss it. And so then if you needed a score to apply to a school, then you don't have them. That's another reason why I hate the physics GRE. I don't even think it really tests very well, like physics understanding. I mean, it's just really a bad test. And I'm very grateful or thankful that a lot of places are not requiring it anymore or not accepting it. And so all this said, I personally know people who have specifically not applied to schools that require one or both of these tests. And I would urge you to consider that as well. If this is something that you don't want to do or can't afford to do or don't have the effort and time to do, the field is moving towards not requiring them, and some places are being stubborn and holding out. And so in some ways, we could use like the power of the people. If many people don't apply to these schools, then maybe they'll get the hint and drop these requirements. So something to consider. Now, if one of the schools that you really want to go to for a variety of reasons does require them, then maybe that's worth taking them. But it is worth investigating or thinking about to yourself, is it worth pursuing these tests? And how much am you gonna get out of taking them and applying to the schools that require them? So that's a thought on standardized tests. Next are the letters of recommendation. So again, every school requires 3 letters. Some schools will allow you to submit a 4th, but all require 3. And this is something that you really, really, really want to start early, because these professors and even postdocs, they are so busy. They write a lot of letters for a lot of people. And it's really a very taxing kind of job to do. But in many ways, it's like the one thing that they can give back to us. We give them, if you worked for someone in your undergrad, you've given them a lot of your time and effort to do research for them. Kind of the one thing that they can give back to you is a letter of recommendation. So don't ever feel like you can't ask for a letter. In some ways, it's the unfortunate currency of academia, or these letters of recommendation. And that in itself is a whole bad system, but we don't have time to get into that. The idea is that you ask these three people. They most often are people you've done research with, or people you've taken a class from. Perhaps it's your undergrad advisor that you didn't necessarily do research with, but they just know you really well. If you have worked in an internship or just in an industry job, they can be your manager, they can be your coworker, they can be anyone in that space. They can be people you've done science outreach with. Maybe you've been going to your local museum for a year or two and given little lectures on constellations. It could be the museum curator. These can be a wide range of people, but you do want them to know you fairly well. You don't want them to write a letter about someone that they don't know. And so the other thing, though, is that it's okay to ask different people for different reasons, or to ask them to focus on different aspects of you. You might have an advisor that you did research with, and they'll know you really well from a research and work perspective. Then you might just you might ask a professor who you took their class and you just really enjoyed it. You didn't do research with them, but you enjoyed the class, you enjoyed them, and they, you went to office hours a lot and they know you. Feel free to ask them to give more of like a general background of who you are as a student, as opposed to who you are as a researcher. And so different letter writers can focus on different parts of who you are and different parts of your story also. And again, because they're so busy, it is okay to, I put it in quotes, to bother them. Make sure you're reminding them that these deadlines are coming up. Make sure that you make this as easy as possible on them by providing them with all the links that they need to actually upload these letters to the various applications. Make sure they know their deadlines. Make sure they know if there are page limits, if there's margin limits. I can't think of it if there were, but make it as easy as you can for them, because while they are doing you a favor, you maybe have done favors for them as well. So it is, it's a two-way street, but it is hard on them. So if you can make it easier on them, that's always a good thing. One of the last things are about transcripts. All places will require transcripts. However, almost always unofficial transcripts are okay. And then later they would ask you for an official transcript upon an acceptance. Like I said earlier, get these from your school ASAP, because sometimes it takes processing time, and you don't want that to be the holdup when you're trying to hit submit on the night before. So get these early. They're just PDFs. You can save them on your laptop, and then you have them for when you need them. And then just some kind of last things are that, again, each school has their own requirements. So when you've decided to apply to a school, read them all, read the requirements very carefully and know what you need and what you don't need. Some schools will ask for an interview. I was interviewed once and then I didn't get in, but they will ask for an interview perhaps. Don't be intimidated by these. They mostly just want to kind of talk to you, get to know you, kind of get a little more information out of you than what would be possible from just the essay alone. So this sometimes happens. And then lastly, again, talk to people who've done it. Talk to people who've gone through this process, who are in grad school. Talk to people who are professors now, who are on the admissions side. These are all good people to talk to. And then I'm running out of time though, but I do want to mention just a little bit on like how to choose a school, or how to choose a list of schools to apply to. And the first thing I would say is ignore this concept of like the prestige of a school. There are schools that are considered, quote unquote, better than others, or more prestigious than others. Forget all of that, because when you're applying to graduate school to do research, cutting edge research, it's so much more important to choose a school based on what kind of research they're doing and what professors are there doing that research. So take the time to really look at a wide range of schools and think about what topics you might be interested in, and then find which professors there are doing that kind of research. You could be thinking about, hey, if I were to go to this school, who would I want to work for? Who would I want to be my advisor? Because, I find their research really interesting. and then consider applying to that school. Because you might find that you're really interested in some topic, and then you look at the website for some of these, quote unquote prestigious schools, they might not be doing that research. They might not have anyone actively pursuing that area. And so then if you were to go there, you're not going to be learning the things that you want to learn, regardless of what the name of the school is. So it's really important to actually kind of work through these websites and figure out what kind of research is actually happening at these schools. And then it also could be really beneficial to reach out to one or two of those professors that you find at each school, and just introduce yourself. Hey, I'm applying. I've done this in the past, but I want to do this in the future. I recognize that you're doing this kind of research. Can you tell me more about it? Just kind of open up with a question, and get them to talk to you a little bit. I know professors love responding to these kind of things. I also know that they get a lot of emails and sometimes lose your email in their inbox. So it's totally okay to send them a follow-up or a reminder, a week or so later, give them some time to get back to you. But if you haven't heard back, feel free to kind of poke them again and say, hey, just following up on this email. I wonder if you get a chance to read it. But what that can do is it gets your name into the mind of someone already at the school. They might be on the admissions committee. They might be talking to people on the admissions committee. They might help you get a fee waiver if possible. So reaching out to professors, individual professors at schools, just to learn more about the program and about the research that they do in particular can really, really help you in the long run. And then, of course, there might be other factors for which you might choose to apply or not to apply to a school. It might be just physically, where is the school? Might be a really important thing. I know it was for me. And so it very well could be for you. So anyway, this is general kind of information on how to apply to schools, to grad schools. There's a lot of information there. So if you do have questions, please do write in the comments or in Piazza.